Tonight we're stepping back through time, not to the grand tournaments or coronation halls you've seen before, but to the quiet, ordinary corners of the Middle Ages. The moments that never made it into the history books. The small rituals. The forgotten faces. The ordinary days that filled 1,000 years. These are the stories they never taught you, not because they weren't important, but because they were so common, so daily, so woven into the fabric of life, that no one thought to write them down. So close your eyes if you wish, let the modern world fade, and drift with me now, back to a world lit by candlelight and measured by the bells of distant monasteries, where we'll discover the medieval lives that history forgot. Let's begin. In a village somewhere in England, let's say the year is 1347. The sun has not yet risen. But in a small timber-framed house near the village green, a woman is already awake. Her name might have been Agnes, or Marjorie, or Joan. History didn't record it. But we know she was there, because every village had someone like her. An alewife. A brewer of the daily drink that kept medieval England alive. Ale, you see, was safer than water. Everyone knew this, though they didn't know why. The boiling process killed what they could not see, the tiny, invisible threats that lurked in wells and streams. So every man, woman, and child drank ale. Weak ale for breakfast. Stronger ale for supper. And someone had to make it. That someone was usually a woman. Our alewife rises in the dark, her movements practiced and slow. She doesn't rush. There's no reason to rush. The day will unfold at its own pace, as it always has, as it always will. She adds wood to the embers in her hearth, coaxing them back to life with gentle breaths. The fire catches. Slowly. Orange light begins to fill the room, casting long shadows on the wattle and daub walls. She fills her largest pot with water, water she carried yesterday from the well. It's heavy. Her back aches. She's perhaps 35 years old, which means she's already lived longer than many. Her hands are rough. Her nails are broken. But her movements are sure. Into the pot goes the malted barley, grain that's been soaked and dried and soaked again until it's just right. The smell of it is sweet and earthy, a smell that would be familiar to anyone living in this time, as familiar as coffee might be to you now. She stirs. And stirs. And stirs. There's a rhythm to it. A meditative quality. The wooden paddle makes soft sounds against the iron pot. Scrape, swirl, scrape, swirl. Outside, a rooster crows. Somewhere distant, a dog barks once, then settles. The brew will take most of the day. She'll add herbs later, perhaps some ground ivy or yarrow, whatever grows nearby and lends the right bitterness. Hops haven't arrived yet. That's still a century away. For now, she works with what the hedgerows and fields provide. When the ale is ready, in a day or two, she'll hang a branch or a broom above her door. An ale stake, they call it. A signal to the village that fresh ale is ready. People will come. They'll bring their own cups or leather jacks. They'll pay her in pennies if they have them, or in bread, eggs, or labor if they don't. This is how she survives. This is her work. Not grand. Not recorded in any chronicle. But essential. The room is warm now. The fire crackles steadily. Steam begins to rise from the pot, curling upward into the shadows of the thatched roof above. She adds another piece of wood. Adjusts the pot. Sits for a moment on a low stool. Through the small window, just an opening really, with wooden shutters she'll open later, the sky is beginning to lighten. Not sunrise yet. But the deep black is fading to indigo, then to a soft dove gray. She thinks about nothing in particular. Or perhaps she thinks about everything. Her children, still asleep in the loft above. The rent she owes. The neighbor who's been ill. The weather. Whether the barley will hold out until harvest. Ordinary thoughts. The thoughts of someone living an ordinary life, in a time we think of as extraordinary. But here, in this moment, in this small house with its earthen floor and its smell of malt and wood smoke, there is only the quiet routine, the steady work, the slow passage of time measured not by clocks, but by the lightening sky and the simmering pot and the gradual warming of the day. And in the background, always in the background, the hearth keeps crackling. Now we move from the village to the church. From the alewife's hearth to a stranger, quieter place. Let your mind drift there now, to a stone church in a medieval town. Perhaps Norwich. Perhaps London. Perhaps somewhere smaller, whose name has been lost. Attached to the outer wall of this church, there is a small room. A cell, they called it. Only about 12 feet by 12 feet. Stone walls. A tiny window facing into the church, so the occupant can hear Massachusetts. Another window, smaller still, facing outward to the street. And a third window, facing a garden or a yard, for light and air. In this cell, someone lives. Or rather, someone has chosen to be sealed inside. She is an anchoress. A woman who has taken a vow of permanent enclosure. She has attended her own funeral. The bishop himself performed the ceremony. He blessed her. Read the prayers for the dead. Sealed her inside this cell. She will never leave. Not until her actual death. Her name might have been Julian. Or Maud. Or Christina. We know some of their names, because a few of them wrote, and their writings survived. But most anchoresses left no words behind. Only the memory of their presence. The shadow of their choice. Why would anyone do this? The question hangs in the air like incense smoke. And the answer, if there is one, is complicated. Woven through with threads of faith and fear and longing and something else. Something harder to name. Some anchoresses sought direct communion with God. They believed that by removing themselves from the world entirely, by living in a space no larger than a tomb, they could achieve a purity of prayer. A closeness to the divine. Unmediated by priests or sacraments, or the noise of daily life. Others sought refuge. From violent husbands. From poverty. From the exhausting labor of medieval womanhood. In the cell, no one could demand their bodies or their time. They were dead to the world, and in that death, strangely, they found a kind of freedom. Our anchoress wakes, though in the dim light of her cell, it's hard to say when night ends and day begins. She sleeps on a narrow cot. A thin mattress stuffed with straw. Rough woolen blankets. The stone floor is cold beneath her feet. She kneels. This is how she spends most of her time. Kneeling in prayer. Her knees are calloused. Thick and hard from years of this. She doesn't notice anymore. She prays the hours. Matins. Lauds. Prime. Terce. Sext. None. Vespers. Compline. The rhythm of the monastic day, even though she is not a nun. She is something else. Something in between. Neither fully cloistered nor fully secular. A living saint. A breathing relic. Through the church side window, called a squint, she can see the altar. She can hear the priest's Latin murmur during Massachusetts. She can smell the incense. The beeswax candles. The accumulated scent of centuries of worship soaked into stone. Through the street side window, people come to speak with her. This might surprise you. But anchoresses were often counselors. Spiritual advisors. Women and men from the town would approach the window, kneel beside it, and speak their troubles. Their sins. Their fears. Their questions about God and death and meaning. And the anchoress would listen. She couldn't see them fully. Just shadows and shapes through the narrow opening. But she could hear their voices. The tremor of grief. The edge of anger. The soft vulnerability of confession. She would offer what she could. Words of scripture. Interpretations of dreams. Comfort. Sometimes silence, which was its own kind of answer. A servant, Usually a local woman hired by the church or by the anchoress's family brings food twice a day. Simple food. Bread, ale, vegetables, sometimes fish. The servant passes it through the garden window, takes away the chamber pot, brings water for washing, says little. The servant's role is maintenance, not companionship. The cell is sparsely furnished. A small table, a prayer desk, a crucifix on the wall, perhaps a book, if the anchoress can read, a psalter maybe, or a devotional text copied by hand, the pages soft from use, the words worn smooth by her eyes tracing them again and again and again. She is not unhappy. This is important to understand. Or at least, not unhappy in the way we might imagine. She has chosen this. Deliberately. With full knowledge of what it means. There is a peace in the restriction. A strange, inverted freedom. The world has fallen away, and what remains is distilled. Essential. Only God. Only prayer. Only the slow passage of time marked by bells. Outside her window, life continues. Carts rumble past. Children play. Merchants shout. Dogs bark. Rain falls and dries. Snow comes and melts. But inside the cell, there is only stillness. Only stone and prayer and the soft sound of breathing. And in the background, always in the background, the church bells keep ringing. Let's move now through the narrow streets of a medieval city. London, perhaps. Or Paris. Or any of the crowded, noisy, smelly towns that dotted Europe in the 1400s. The streets are unpaved. Mud in winter. Dust in summer. In between, a thick, treacherous mixture of both, churned up by cart wheels and hooves and thousands of feet. The houses lean toward each other. Upper stories jut out over the street, so close you could almost shake hands with your neighbor across the way without leaving your window. This makes the streets below dim, even at midday. Sunlight struggles to reach the ground. And in this perpetual twilight, in the shadows and corners and hidden spaces, there are rats. So many rats? Rats in the grain stores. Rats in the cellars. Rats in the thatched roofs. Rats in the gutters that run down the center of each street, carrying away waste and water and things we won't name now, because this is a story for sleep, and some details are best left soft. The rats are gray and brown and quick. Their eyes catch the light like tiny mirrors. They're clever. Adaptable. They've lived alongside humans for thousands of years, following us wherever we build and store and discard. And where there are rats, there are people who make their living catching them. Our rat catcher is a man called Tom. Or maybe Jack. A common name for a common trade. He's thin. Wiry. Quick himself, like the creatures he hunts. He wears a leather jerkin and wool hose patched many times over. His boots are worn nearly through at the soles. He carries a sack over one shoulder. In his hands, a variety of tools. Traps made of wood and wire. A stick with a nail through the end. A small terrier dog trotting at his heels. Bred for this work, fearless and fast. Tom begins his rounds at dawn. He visits the same places each day. The bakery first, where rats come for the flour and grain. The butcher's shop, where they come for scraps and blood. The alehouse. The chandler's. The homes of those who can afford to pay him. He's paid by the tail. A penny for every rat tail he can produce. Sometimes less. Sometimes more, if the infestation is bad. It's not steady work. Some days he catches a dozen. Some days none. But the rats always come back. At the bakery, he sets his traps in the corners where the rats have worn smooth paths through the dust. You can always tell where rats travel. Their routes are consistent. They follow the walls. They prefer darkness. They're cautious, but hunger makes them brave. Tom's dog sniffs eagerly, tail wagging. She knows this game. She likes it. When a rat appears, and one always does, she's on it in a flash. There's a squeal. A brief thrashing. Then silence. Tom adds the body to his sack. 1 tael. 1 penny. He moves through the city like this. Slow and methodical. Patient. This is not work you can rush. The rats are on their own schedule. They appear when they appear. You can only set the conditions and wait. In the butcher's shop, behind the hanging carcasses, Tom spots a large rat. A big one. Gray and sleek. It watches him. Bold. They lock eyes for a moment, man and rat, each assessing the other. Tom moves slowly. Positions himself. The dog is ready. The rat hesitates, then darts. The dog lunges. There's a scuffle. The rat escapes this time, disappearing into a hole in the wall too small for the dog to follow. Tom shrugs. There will be other chances. The rat isn't going anywhere. This is its territory too. He sits for a moment on an overturned barrel. Pulls out a piece of hard bread from his pocket. Eats slowly. Gives a bit to the dog, who swallows it without chewing and looks hopefully for more. The butcher emerges from the back room. Nods at Tom. Any luck? A few, Tom says. I'll be back tomorrow. The butcher nods again. Goes back to his work. This is the extent of their conversation. It's enough. Tom continues his rounds. By midday, he's caught 8 rats. 8 taels. 8 pennies. It's enough for food. For ale. For a place to sleep tonight in the back room of a tavern, on a pile of straw he shares with 2 other men. It's not a life anyone dreams of. But it's a life. His life. And he knows it well. As evening comes, Tom finishes his rounds. The city is settling. Candles flicker in windows. Somewhere, someone is singing. A baby cries. A door slams. The usual symphony of a medieval town preparing for night. Tom heads to the tavern. The dog trots beside him, tired now but content. They've done their work. Tomorrow, they'll do it again. And the day after. And the day after that. And in the background, always in the background, the city keeps breathing. Far from the city now, far from the crowded streets and the noise and the press of humanity, there is a clearing in a forest. Let yourself drift there. Feel the change in the air. The coolness. The scent of moss and earth and growing things. The sound of wind moving through leaves, a sound like water, constant and soothing. In this clearing, there is a small hut. More of a shelter, really. Walls made of woven branches and mud. A roof of thatch. 1 door. No windows. A fire pit outside, stones arranged in a circle, ash and charcoal from last night's fire still faintly warm. This is where the hermit lives. Not an anchoress this time, but something similar. Someone who has withdrawn from the world. A man, perhaps 50 years old, though age is hard to judge. His beard is long and gray. His hair likewise. His clothes are simple. Undyed wool. Rough cloth. A rope belt. His name was lost long ago. Or perhaps he never gave it. Hermits often didn't. They left their names behind along with everything else. He wakes with the sun. This is natural when you live this way. When there are no candles to extend the day, no artificial light to fool the body, you rise with dawn and sleep with dusk. Your rhythm matches the earth's rhythm. You become part of the pattern. The hermit emerges from his hut, blinking in the morning light. Around him, the forest is waking too. Birds singing. Insects beginning their work. Somewhere, a stream trickles over stones. You can't see it from here, but you can hear it. Faintly. A gentle, constant whisper. He stretches. His joints are stiff. He's been living this way for, how long? 10 years? 15? He's lost count. Time moves differently here. Not in days or weeks or months, but in seasons, in cycles, in the slow turning of the year. Near the hut, there is a garden. This surprises people sometimes. They imagine hermits living on nothing, fasting constantly, existing on air and prayer. But most hermits were practical. They needed to eat, and so they grew what they could. Our hermit's garden is small but carefully tended. Rows of beans and peas climbing up wooden stakes. Onions and garlic. Herbs, thyme and sage and mint. A few cabbages. Some turnips. Nothing exotic. Nothing that requires much care. But enough. He works in the garden now. Slowly. Gently. Pulling a few weeds. Checking the plants for pests. The work is meditative. Repetitive. His hands in the soil. The earth cool and slightly damp from last night's dew. He talks to the plants sometimes. Not words exactly. Just soft sounds. Murmurs of encouragement. He believes, though he wouldn't articulate it this way, that the plants respond to kindness. That they grow better when tended with care and attention. Modern science might agree with him. After the garden, he checks his traps. He sets snares near the rabbit runs. Small loops of rope, positioned just so. Sometimes there's a rabbit. Sometimes not. Today, nothing. He resets the snares. Moves on. He gathers mushrooms. He knows which ones are safe. He learned this in childhood, a lifetime ago, in a village he barely remembers. Mushrooms growing on a fallen log. Brown and earthy smelling. He takes what he needs. Leaves the rest to seed and spread. By mid-morning, he's collected enough for a meal. The rabbit can wait for another day. He builds a fire. This too is a skill. A meditation. The careful arrangement of tinder and kindling. The spark from flint and steel. The gentle blowing to coax the flame. Patience. Always patience. When the fire is going, he fills a clay pot with water from the stream. Adds the mushrooms. Some herbs. A handful of beans from yesterday's harvest. Sets the pot on stones over the flame. And then he sits. This is most of what he does. Sitting. Being still. Watching. Listening. People sometimes ask, if they think about hermits at all, what do they do all day? The question assumes that doing is necessary. That time must be filled with action. But the hermit has learned otherwise. He's learned that there is value in stillness. In observation. In simply being present to the world around you. He watches a beetle climb a blade of grass. The beetle is green and iridescent. It moves with slow determination. The hermit watches until the beetle reaches the top of the grass, pauses, then flies away. He listens to the stream, the birds, the wind. He smells the cooking food, the wood smoke, the forest scent of pine and decay and growth all mixed together. He prays sometimes, though his prayers aren't formal. No Latin, no memorized words. Just a kind of open attention. A receptivity. A sense of connection to something larger than himself. The food is ready. He eats from the pot. Slowly. Tasting each bite. Grateful. Afterward, he cleans the pot in the stream. Returns to his hut. Lies down in the dim coolness. And in the background, always in the background, the forest keeps whispering. Back to the village now. Back to the world of people and work and the small struggles of daily life. It's late afternoon. The light is golden, that particular slant of sun that comes in autumn, when the days are growing shorter but haven't yet turned cold. On the edge of the village, where the houses give way to common land and forest, there's a child. A boy. Perhaps 8 years old. Maybe 10. Small for his age. Thin in the way many children were then, not starving, but never quite full either. He's gathering sticks. This is his work. Every day, after he's helped his mother with whatever needs doing, he goes into the forest and collects kindling. Fallen branches, twigs, anything dry enough to burn. He bundles them into faggots. That's the word they used. Bundles of sticks tied with twine or strips of bark. Each faggot about as thick as his leg. Light enough to carry. Big enough to sell. He'll take them to the market tomorrow. Sell them to housewives who don't have time to gather their own kindling. Or to elderly folks who can't walk far into the forest anymore. A faggot sells for a farthing. Sometimes less. But every little bit helps. The boy moves through the forest with practiced ease. He knows which areas have been picked over recently. Which fallen logs are still producing good dry branches. Which clearings get enough sun to keep the wood from rotting. He's quiet. Not talking to himself or singing like some children might. Just working. Methodical. His hands are already rough. Small cuts and scrapes from the bark and thorns. He doesn't notice them much anymore. Above him, the canopy filters the sunlight into shifting patterns. Green and gold. Shadows and brightness dancing as the leaves move in the breeze. It's beautiful, though the boy doesn't think of it that way. It's just the forest. The place where he works. He's gathered 3 faggots so far. They're stacked near the forest edge, waiting for him to carry them home. He'll make 1 more. 4 faggots. That's a good day's work. He spots a fallen branch. Long and straight. Still attached at one end but dead enough to be dry. He tugs at it. It doesn't break. He braces his foot against the trunk and pulls harder. The wood cracks, splinters, finally gives way. He's breathing hard. Sits down on a mossy log to rest. Takes a drink from a water skin he carried from home. The water is warm. A bit stale. But wet. It helps. A squirrel chatters at him from a nearby tree. Annoyed, probably. This is its territory. The boy looks up, grins, makes a chattering sound back. The squirrel flicks its tail and disappears. He thinks about nothing in particular. Or maybe everything. He thinks about supper, what his mother might be cooking. Probably pottage. It's almost always pottage. A thick stew of whatever vegetables they have. Sometimes with a bit of bacon fat if they're lucky. Bread to dip in it. He thinks about his father, who's working in someone else's field today. Harvesting. His father will come home tired. Will eat silently. Will probably fall asleep by the fire. He thinks about winter, which is coming. Winter means less work in the forest. The sticks will be wet. Harder to sell. But there will be other work. There's always work if you're willing to do it. He stands. Finishes his 4th faggot. Ties it with a piece of twine his mother gave him, recycled from a flour sack. Nothing is wasted. Everything has multiple lives. He gathers his bundles. Hoists one onto each shoulder. The other 2 he'll carry under his arms. It's awkward. Heavy. But he's strong despite being small. You have to be. The walk back to the village is slow. He has to stop twice to rest and readjust the load. His shoulders ache. But this is normal. This is how it feels to work. As he nears home, he sees smoke rising from chimneys. Hears the sounds of evening. A baby crying. Someone chopping wood. Geese honking. A dog barking. The village is settling into its rhythms. His mother sees him coming. Waves from the doorway. She looks tired. She always looks tired. But she smiles. Good lad, she says when he reaches her. She helps him stack the faggots against the side of the house. Out of the weather. Ready for tomorrow's market. Supper's nearly ready, she says. Wash your hands. He does. In a bucket of cold water. Scrubs the dirt and tree sap as best he can. It never comes all the way off. Inside, the house is warm. Smoky. The fire crackles. His father is there, already eating. Too tired to wait. The boy sits. Receives his bowl. Eats. And in the background, always in the background, the day keeps fading. Night now. Deep night. The kind that feels thick and close, especially inside a small medieval house where the only light comes from a single candle and the glow of embers in the hearth. In this house, there is a woman in labor. She's young. Perhaps 20. Perhaps younger. This is her first child. She's been laboring since yesterday evening. Hours and hours. The pain comes in waves. Cresting and falling. Cresting and falling. Like breathing. Like the rhythm of the world itself. With her, there are other women. Her mother. Her neighbor. And a midwife. The midwife is older. 50 maybe. Gray hair tucked under a linen cap. Strong hands. Calm eyes. She's seen this many times before. Hundreds of times. She knows what's normal. What's dangerous. When to intervene. When to wait. Mostly, she waits. She sits on a low stool near the laboring woman. Close enough to reach out. Close enough to monitor. But not hovering. Not fussing. Just present. Breathe, she says occasionally. Not urgently. Just a reminder. That's right. Just like that. The young woman grips her mother's hand. Squeezes hard when the contractions come. Moans. Sometimes cries out. This is allowed. This is natural. There's no shame in the sounds of labor. The midwife checks periodically. Gently. Her hands know what to feel for. How the baby is positioned. How far along things are. She doesn't explain. She doesn't need to. The women in the room trust her. She's brought most of them into the world themselves. Between contractions, there are moments of rest. Brief respites. The young woman leans back against piled blankets. Closes her eyes. Breathes. Her face is sweaty. Her hair stuck to her forehead. Her shift soaked through. Someone offers her water. She drinks. A sip. Then another. Too much and she'll vomit. The midwife knows this. Just small sips, she murmurs. The neighbor is boiling water. Not for cleanliness, that understanding hasn't arrived yet. But for warmth. For comfort. For the endless tea the midwife keeps preparing. Herbs mixed in hot water. Chamomile. Raspberry leaf. Things that are supposed to help. Whether they do or not, who can say? But the ritual helps. The sense of doing something. Of not being helpless. The room smells of smoke and sweat and something else. Something primal. The smell of life happening. Of a body doing the work it was designed to do. Hours pass. Time in this room doesn't move like time outside. It stretches. Contracts. Becomes elastic. A contraction can feel like forever. The space between can vanish in an instant. The midwife tells stories sometimes. Between the contractions. Soft stories. About other births. Other babies. She speaks gently. Her voice like a lullaby. Keeping everyone calm. Keeping everyone grounded. I remember when your mother had you, she says to the laboring woman. Late summer night it was. Hot. We had all the windows open. Your father kept bringing cold water from the well. Thought he was helping. She chuckles softly. You came at dawn. Hollered loud enough to wake the whole village. The young woman manages a weak smile. You'll do fine, the midwife says. Your body knows what to do. And it's true. The body does know. This is ancient knowledge. Older than words. Older than memory. Written into flesh and bone and blood. But knowing doesn't make it easy. More hours pass. The candle burns down. Someone lights another. The embers are fed. The fire maintained. Outside, complete darkness. No moon tonight. Just the vast, star-filled sky that no one has time to look at. Then, finally, a shift. The midwife feels it. Sits forward. "It's time," she says. "When the next one comes, push." The women in the room move into position. Practiced. Coordinated. This is a dance they all know. The mother supporting from behind. The neighbor ready with clean linens. The midwife with her steady hands. The contraction builds. The woman bears down. Pushes. Cries out. "Good," the midwife says. "Good." Again. With the next one. It takes several more. Pushing. Resting. Pushing. Resting. The effort enormous. Exhausting. But the end is near now. Everyone can feel it. And then, ahead. Dark wet hair. The midwife's hands guiding. Gentle. "Sure. One more," she says. "One more push." The woman gathers everything she has left. Pushes. And the baby slides free into the midwife's waiting hands. For a moment, silence. The kind of silence that holds the whole world. Then a cry. Small. Indignant. Perfect. "A boy," the midwife says. She's smiling. "A fine, strong boy." She clears the baby's mouth and nose. Ties off the cord. Cuts it. Wraps the baby in clean linen. Places him on his mother's chest. The young woman is crying. Laughing. Exhausted. Overwhelmed. She looks down at her son. Touches his face. His tiny, perfect hands. "Hello?" she whispers. "Hello?" And in the background, always in the background, the fire keeps glowing. Let's move now to a monastery. A scriptorium, specifically. A quiet room where manuscripts are made. It's winter. You can feel the cold even through the stone walls. There are no fireplaces in the scriptorium. Fire is too dangerous around precious books and parchment. So the monks who work here simply endure. They wear extra layers. Wrap blankets around their shoulders. Sometimes they can barely feel their fingers. But the work continues. Our scribe is a young monk. Perhaps 25. He took his vows 5 years ago. Before that, he barely remembers. A life in a village somewhere. A father who was a freeman farmer. An offer from the local monastery. The ability to read and write was rare. Valuable. It meant opportunity. Now he spends his days copying texts. Today, he's working on a psalter. A book of psalms. It's for a wealthy patron, someone who's paid the monastery handsomely for a beautiful, illuminated copy. The scribe's job is the text. Other monks will add the decorations later. The gold leaf. The elaborate initial letters. The miniature paintings and jewel tones. But first, the words must be copied. Perfectly. He sits at a slanted desk. His posture is careful. Bend over the page but not too much. You have to protect your back. This work can destroy a body if you're not careful. In front of him, a piece of parchment. Expensive. Made from sheep or calf skin. Scraped thin. Treated until it's smooth and pale. Each sheet represents time and cost and the life of an animal. You don't waste parchment. To his right, the exemplar. The book he's copying from. An older psalter. Well used. The pages soft and slightly foxed with age. In his hand, a quill. Goose feather, most likely. The end cut at an angle. Sharpened to a fine point. He'll need to resharpen it several times today. A knife sits nearby for this purpose. His ink is iron gall. Black. Permanent. Made from oak galls and iron salts and gum arabic. The monastery makes its own. The recipe is old. Reliable. If the ink is made right, it will last centuries. Longer than stone. Longer than memory. He dips his quill. Scrapes the excess against the edge of the inkwell. Too much ink and it will blob. Too little and the letters will be pale. It's a balance. A feel you develop over time. He begins to write. The letters are careful. Uniform. He's using a Gothic script. Angular. Dense. More letters per page means using less precious parchment. Economics and aesthetics merged. He works slowly. A page might take hours. Maybe a full day if the text is complex or if he's adding decorative capitals. Rush and you make mistakes. Mistakes on parchment can't be easily fixed. His mind wanders sometimes. It's impossible not to let it wander. The work is repetitive. Meditative. His hand knows what to do. The letters flow almost automatically. He thinks about dinner. About the sermon he heard this morning. About a dream he had last night that he can't quite remember. And sometimes, when the text is particularly boring or repetitive, he adds something to the margins. This is where we find the hidden life of medieval scribes. In the margins. Little drawings. Comments. Complaints. Evidence that real humans made these books. Humans who got cold and tired and bored and frustrated. In some manuscripts, you can find drawings of animals. Cats. Dogs. Monkeys. Sometimes the animals are doing human things. Fighting with swords. Playing musical instruments. Being ridiculous. Sometimes there are comments. Thank God it will soon be dark. This parchment is hairy. Let the reader's voice be extended, and the writer's arm be free from pain. Our scribe hasn't added anything yet to this manuscript. But he's thinking about it. The patron is paying for the psalms, not for anything else. But at the very edge of one page, where it won't be noticed unless you're really looking, he draws a tiny flower. Just for himself. Just to prove he was here. The hours pass. The light from the windows shifts. Afternoon is fading. The scriptorium grows dimmer. Soon it will be too dark to work. You can't trust candlelight for this. The flickering makes mistakes too easy. The bell rings for vespers. Evening prayer. The scribe sets down his quill. Carefully. He doesn't want to knock over the ink. He flexes his fingers. They're cramped. Stiff. He's been gripping the quill for hours. He massages them absently. He looks at his work. 3 pages today. Not bad. Not great. Average. Tomorrow he'll do more. He covers the ink. Closes the exemplar. Leaves the parchment on the desk to dry fully overnight. He joins the other monks filing toward the chapel. Their footsteps echo on stone. Their breath visible in the cold air. He's tired. But there's a satisfaction in the tiredness. In knowing he's made something. Added to something that will outlast him. The words he copied today will still exist centuries from now. Long after he's forgotten. Long after everyone who knew his name is dust. It's not immortality, but it's something. And in the background, always in the background, the bells keep ringing. Summer now. Let the seasons shift. Feel the warmth return. We're in a field. Wheat, probably. Or barley. The crop has been harvested. The main harvest is done. The Lord's share taken. The farmer's share stored. The tithes paid to the church. But the field is not empty. There are still people here. Bent over. Moving slowly through the stubble. Picking up what's been left behind. These are gleaners. It's an old rite. Ancient. Biblical, even. After the harvest, the poor are allowed into the fields to gather what remains. The dropped stalks. The missed heads of grain. The scattered seeds. It's not charity exactly. It's law. Custom. A recognition that the land produces enough for everyone, if everyone takes only what they need. Our gleaner is a woman. perhaps 60 years old. Bent with age and work. Her hands gnarled with arthritis. But still strong enough. Still capable. She wears a plain wool dress. Patched many times. A kerchief over her gray hair. Bare feet, even though the stubble is sharp. She can't afford to wear out her shoes. She only has one pair. She needs them for winter. She carries a large cloth sack. It's nearly empty now. She's just begun. She'll be here until dark. Tomorrow she'll come back. And the day after. Until there's nothing left to find. She moves methodically. Scanning the ground. Bending. Picking up a stalk here. A few seeds there. Her back aches. It always aches. She ignores it. Pain is just part of life at this age. You work through it or you don't eat. There are others in the field with her. Other gleaners. Mostly women. Some children. A few old men. They don't talk much. Everyone is focused on their own work. But there's a camaraderie. A shared understanding. They're all here for the same reason. A young girl, maybe 7 or 8, works near the woman. The girl is quick. Her eyes sharp. She spots things the older woman misses. Sometimes she points them out. There, grandmother. By that stone. The woman isn't actually the girl's grandmother. But that's what the girl calls her. It's easier than explaining. The girl's mother is dead. Her father too. The woman has taken her in. Feeds her when she can. It's not adoption. Not formal. Just survival. This is how things work sometimes. The sun is high. Hot. The woman straightens for a moment. Presses a hand to her lower back. Looks across the field. The stubble stretches to the tree line. Golden in the bright light. She can see the shimmer of heat rising. She wipes sweat from her forehead. Takes a drink from a water skin. Offers some to the girl. The girl drinks eagerly. Water dribbles down her chin. She wipes it with the back of her hand. Grins. How much more do we need? The girl asks. As much as we can get, the woman says. Every grain helps. This is true. What they gather here will be carefully stored. Threshed. Ground into flour. Mixed with whatever else they have. It might be the difference between eating and not eating this winter. Between thin meals and no meals. It's not enough usually. Gleaning alone can't sustain a household. But combined with everything else, foraging. A small garden. Occasional work. Charity from the church. Trading skills for food, it adds up to survival. The woman bends again. Keeps working. The repetitive motion is almost meditative. Scan. Bend. Pick. Stand. Move. Scan. Bend. Pick. Stand. Move. Hours pass this way. Other gleaners gradually leave. They'd gathered enough, or they'd given up, or they have other work to do. The field empties slowly. But the woman and the girl stay. Stay until the sun is low. Until the light turns golden. Until the shadows grow long. The woman's sack is heavier now. Not full. But heavier. She can feel the weight of it. The promise of it. Maybe 10 pounds of grain. Maybe less. Enough for a few days' bread if she stretches it. Time to go, she says to the girl. They leave the field together. Walking slowly. The woman is exhausted. Her legs tremble. But she carries the sack. On the way home, they pass the manor house. Stone walls. Glass windows. Smoke rising from multiple chimneys. The evidence of wealth. Of plenty. The woman doesn't resent it. Or maybe she does. But if so, she's learned not to let it show. Resentment doesn't fill bellies. It doesn't change anything. You just keep moving. Keep working. Keep surviving. They reach their cottage as the sun sets. The woman sets down the sack. Carefully. Like it's precious. Which it is. The girl starts the fire. The woman sits. Just for a moment. Just to rest. Tomorrow they'll go back to the field. And the day after. Until there's nothing left. And in the background, always in the background, the seasons keep turning. We're in a church now. A cathedral, maybe? Or a large abbey church. Somewhere with stone columns rising into shadows. Somewhere with the smell of incense and centuries. There's a shrine here. A saint's relics. Bones, probably. Kept in an elaborate container called a reliquary. Gold or silver. Decorated with jewels. Set on an altar behind an iron grate so people can't touch it. But they can see it. They can pray to it. And they do. There's a man kneeling here now. He's been kneeling for hours. His knees are numb. His legs cramped. But he stays. He's come a long way for this. He's not going to rush. He's a pilgrim. He's traveled, let's say, 200 miles to get here. On foot. It took him 3 weeks. Maybe 4. He slept rough most nights. In barns when farmers would allow it. In the forest when they wouldn't. He ate sparingly. Bread. Cheese when he could afford it. Water from streams. He wears a pilgrim's badge. A small pewter medallion pinned to his hat. It identifies him as someone on a holy journey. It's supposed to protect him. Give him safe passage. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Why is he here? The question is important. People became pilgrims for many reasons. Some seeking miracles. Healing for themselves or loved ones. Some fulfilling vows. Promises made in moments of desperation. Some performing penance. Atoning for sins. Some simply seeking. Something. Anything. A sense of meaning or purpose or connection. Our pilgrim is seeking healing. His wife is sick. Has been for months. A wasting sickness. She grows thinner every day. Weaker. The local priest prayed. It didn't help. A wise woman gave herbs. They helped briefly, then stopped helping. So he came here. To this shrine. This saint is known for healing. Miraculous cures. There are stories. Testimonies. Crutches left behind by people who could suddenly walk. Eyes that could suddenly see. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. But when you're desperate, you try anything. He prays. His lips move silently. The prayers are in Latin mostly. Learned by rote. He doesn't understand all the words. But that doesn't matter. It's the intent that counts. The devotion. He's brought an offering. A small candle. Expensive for him. He can't afford much. But it's something. He lights it from one of the other candles already burning. Places it carefully in the designated spot. Watches the flame steady itself. The church is quiet. Not empty, but quiet. There are other pilgrims here too. Other seekers. Each absorbed in their own private conversation with the divine. The light filtering through the stained glass windows paints everything in colors. Blue. Red. Gold. Green. The dust motes in the air shine like tiny stars. It's beautiful. The kind of beauty that makes you feel small. Humble. Aware of your insignificance. And yet, the church is also designed to make you feel important. Chosen. Part of something vast and eternal. A strange paradox. But effective. The pilgrim sits back on his heels for a moment. Rests. He's so tired. The journey here exhausted him. The worry exhausts him more. He thinks about his wife. Her smile. Her laugh. The way she used to sing while working. She doesn't sing anymore. Barely speaks. He thinks about his children. 3 of them. Young. They need their mother. He needs her. Please, he whispers. Not Latin. Just his own language. The language of his heart. Please. Help her. I'll do anything. I'll come back every year. I'll be better. I'll be good. Just please. He doesn't know if this works. If bargaining with God or his saints is even appropriate. But it's all he has. Time passes. How much, he's not sure. The light shifts slightly. Other pilgrims come and go. The church breathes with quiet activity. Monks chanting somewhere distant. Footsteps on stone. The creak of a heavy door. Eventually, he stands. His legs are stiff. He has to hold on to a column for a moment, until the feeling returns. He looks at the shrine one last time. At the ornate reliquary. At the candles burning. At the evidence of so many other hopes and fears and prayers. He doesn't feel healed. Or transformed. Or certain. He just feels tired. And hopeful. And afraid. But he's done what he came to do. He's asked. He's prayed. He's fulfilled his vow. Now he has to go home. Face whatever comes. He walks slowly toward the church door. Pauses at the threshold. The world outside seems bright after the dim interior. Almost too bright. He blinks. Adjusts. Then he steps out. Begins the long walk home. Will his prayer be answered? Will his wife recover? History doesn't record it. We'll never know his name or her name or what happened to them. But for a few hours, in this church, they mattered. Their story mattered. And in the background, always in the background, the church bells keep ringing. It's very late now. Deep night. The kind of darkness that modern people rarely experience. No street lights. No glow from cities. Just the moon, when there is one, and the stars. So many stars. We're in a town. A small one. Most of the people are asleep. Behind closed shutters. Behind locked doors. Curled in their beds. Breathing softly. Dreaming dreams we'll never know. But someone is awake. A night watchman. Every town had them. Men hired to walk the streets after dark. To watch for fire, the greatest danger in a world of wood and thatch and open flames. To watch for thieves. To call out the hours. Our watchman is middle-aged. Sturdy. Reliable. He's been doing this for 10 years. He knows every street in this town. Every alley. Every corner where trouble might hide. He carries a lantern. A candle inside a frame of horn panels. It gives just enough light to see a few feet ahead. Not much. But enough. He also carries a staff. A stout wooden club. For defense if needed. But mostly he's never needed it. Most nights are quiet. Peaceful. Nothing happens. He walks his rounds slowly. Methodically. There's a route he follows. A pattern. Every hour, he makes the circuit. Checking. Listening. Watching. His boots make soft sounds on the packed earth of the street. Scrunch. 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 A rhythmic, steady pace. Sometimes he calls out, 2 o'clock and all is well! His voice echoes slightly in the empty streets. No one answers. But people hear. Behind their shutters they hear. And they're reassured. The world is still in order. Someone is watching. He passes the bakery. He can smell bread baking. The bakers start work long before dawn. The ovens need hours to heat. By morning, there will be fresh bread. But now, there's only the smell. Warm. Yeasty. Comforting. He passes the church. The door is locked. But he can see the faint glow of the sanctuary lamp through the window. A single flame kept burning always. A reminder of the divine presence. He passes houses where people sleep. He knows most of them. The tanner. The cooper. the widow who sells eggs, the young couple who just married last spring. Their lives continue behind these walls. Private. Hidden. He walks through the market square. Empty now. Silent. During the day it's chaos. Noise and smell and activity. But at night, it's just an open space. Cobblestones catching the moonlight. Shadows deep under the eaves of surrounding buildings. He stops for a moment. Sets down his lantern. Looks up. The sky is incredible. From horizon to horizon, stars. Thousands of them. More. Millions, probably. He doesn't know the exact number. No one does. He can see the Milky Way. A river of light arcing across the darkness. He doesn't call it that. He calls it, what do they call it? The Walsingham Way, maybe? Or the Path of St. James. Different names in different places. But always the same phenomenon. That band of concentrated starlight. He knows some constellations. The Plough. The Hunter. The Great Bear. His father taught him. Practical knowledge. You can navigate by stars. Tell the time by them. Know when to plant and when to harvest. But also, they're beautiful. Just beautiful. In a way that makes you feel small but not insignificant. Part of something vast and ordered and incomprehensible. He thinks about time. About how many night watchmen have stood where he's standing. Looking up at these same stars. The stars don't change. People do. Towns do. But the stars remain. It's both comforting and unsettling. A dog barks somewhere. Breaking the silence. Then settles. Probably dreaming. The watchman picks up his lantern. Continues his round. Past the well. Past the inn. Past the edge of town where the buildings give way to fields. He pauses there. Looking out at the darkness beyond. The forest is a black mass against the slightly less black sky. Somewhere out there, wolves maybe. Deer. Foxes. All the wild things living their wild lives. But here, in the town, safety. Order. The fragile bubble of civilization maintained by walls and doors and watchmen like him. He turns back. Makes his way toward the center again. His route takes him past a house where a baby is crying. He can hear it. Thin wail cutting through the night. Probably sick. Or hungry. Or just being a baby. He thinks briefly about the mother inside. Awake. Tired. Comforting. Doing what mothers do. What they've always done. He moves on. The baby's cry fades behind him. 3 o'clock approaches. He'll call it soon. Let people know. Then continue. 4 o'clock. 5. Until dawn comes and his shift ends and he can go home. Sleep while the world wakes. But for now, he walks. He watches. He keeps the peace. And above him, above all of us, the stars keep shining. And so, we've walked through these forgotten stories together. The alewife and her brew. The anchoress in her cell. The rat-catcher and his rounds. The hermit in his forest. The child gathering sticks. The midwife attending birth. The scribe in his margins. The gleaner in the field. The pilgrim at the shrine. The night watchman under the stars. Ordinary people, living ordinary lives, in what we think of as an extraordinary time. But to them, it was just life. The only life they knew. Their names are lost. Their faces forgotten. But for a little while tonight, we remembered them. We walked beside them. We saw the world through their eyes. And now, as you drift toward sleep, perhaps you can carry them with you. These shadows. These echoes. These quiet voices from a time long past. Rest now. Let the stories fade like candlelight. Let sleep come gently. The medieval world continues without us, as it always has, in memory and dream and the slow turning of the seasons. Good night.